Hey guys, Razorblade Mango here, and today I wanted to talk about a subject that is very frequently mentioned on this channel, while very rarely getting its own dedicated video. And if you've seen the title of this video already, you know what it is. So, alright everyone, let's all take a deep breath and say it with me. Live services! So this video actually works out for me because it's something I wanted to talk about in the wake of multiple announcements last week, and it also allows me to rework a big element from my PlayStation video that I wanted to do before the last State of Play, but decided to cancel because releasing this kind of video for such a small fish event seemed wholly inappropriate. So now I can rework a big element from that video and make it its own thing. So that works out for me. So last week there came this avalanche of announcements regarding games, some rumored, some confirmed, that are going to be live services. So we have the rumor that Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to go for a Fortnite style map. We don't know whether or not that's how they're going to approach their version of GTA Online, or that's how the single player is going to go, but that was the big rumor last week. Then we have the official confirmation that the next Assassin's Creed game might go into permanent live service territory with the hilariously named Assassin's Creed Infinity. And then we got the live services that were announced during the PlayStation State of Play last week, like the Arcade-ageddon, the Tribes of Midgard, where we saw the post-launch plans for that, and the horribly named the Hunters Arena Legends, which is the most generic name I have ever heard for a video game ever. It's like an AI made a video game title. It's so bad. And it also ties into what I wanted to talk about in the other video, which is Sony's increasing investments in multiplayer and live services in the form of partnering with studios like Haven and Deviation and Firewalk, where they've never, with the exception of Firewalk, they've never explicitly said they're going for live service multiplayer partnerships with these companies, but that seems to be the battle plan when it comes to partnering with these specific three. Plus, you've also got Last of Us Part 2 factions coming in. You've got the pretty openly announced idea of a multiplayer project that Insomniac is working on. So there is this ever-increasing investment in multiplayer and live services coming from PlayStation. So this all ties into what I wanted to talk about, which is the fact that I do not like live services very much. That should be very obvious if you've been on this channel for any length of time. And I wanted to get into mainly specifically why I don't particularly like them and why I think it's dumb for these companies to pursue this style of game. And here's a big secret that I'm going to share with you all. I actually don't mind the idea of live services in theory, and that's in theory. In theory, despite how much shit I talk about live services on this channel, these games could be really cool, and they can be really cool when they're released in very limited situations, launch with a lot of good content and gameplay, and aren't monetized to death. So, like with a lot of things in the video game industry, the problem with live services, and like every other flavor of the year that in the video game industry, is that these horrible, greedy AAA publishers descend like locusts on an idea, pimp that idea out to the point where we're all sick of it, and leave the concept that was once rich and fruitful with potential, leaves that stuff a cold, disgusting, stripped corpse of what it could have been, and what it could be still. I think we've reached a point. I think it is fair to say that when there's such this negative, dirty air around the term live service, and these publishers did it to themselves, okay? It's not the customer's fault that people don't like live services. It's how these publishers have been making these games for years now. How they've just been pimping them out for years. How they've been pushing and pushing further and further for exploitative business tactics in order to wring as much possible money out of every single game they make. And the sad part too is that a lot of ideas that modern live services run with have potential. So take, for example, the recent Destruction All-Stars. I feel like a typical single-player / multiplayer structure would have benefited this game more. It could have had a really enjoyable, well-crafted, well-written, one-and-done campaign with a wide variety of multiplayer modes, with no virtual currency garbage, and it could have just been this really unique take on the destruction, car combat kind of stuff, and it really could have been something special. However, as a live service with battle passes, seasons, and wacky Fortnite cosmetics, it fucking sucked, and it bombed. Even when Sony gave the game away to PlayStation Plus users for 2 months, and also a couple months ago gave everyone enough currency to buy its first battle pass, it still sucks. It still can't fill lobbies. It still is dying. It's like nearly dead. It's on its deathbed. And that sucks because this idea could have had potential. Multiple ideas that have been put in multiple live service games could have had potential, but they're absolutely ruined. They just have this stink slathered all over them when they're plonked into this empty, annoying, and exploitative live service format. And another thing too is, how the fuck are people supposed to keep up with all of these? We already live in a time where we have the top dogs of live services. You know, we have Fortnite. We have PUBG, we have Warzone, we have Apex, we have Overwatch, World of Warcraft, Destiny 2, Final Fantasy 14, fucking Rainbow Six Siege, and more. We have our crowned champions. We there will be times where something slips through the crack. You'll get an Among Us, you'll get a Genshin Impact every so often, but those are in rare cases where things will slip through and actually be successful. But time is a finite thing, and most people are only going to stick with 1 or 2 live services. So I just don't understand why these companies become so blinded by dollar signs that they have to restructure their entire companies and developers' design philosophies to chase this trend. We saw this pretty bluntly with Ubisoft, where they went from having a pretty clear line between their single player stuff and their multiplayer stuff, and then they released that slideshow presentation of how they're now going all in. They're betting all in on the live service model, where they're blending the two together, and they're going to be making pretty much nearly every single game they make a live service. There is very little relief from it, except in the form of maybe Mario plus Rabbids. Maybe the one example I can think of at the top of my head, because even now their single player stuff has an assload of microtransactions in it, even the good ones like Watch Dogs 2 and Immortals Phoenix Rising. You just look at the cosmetic shops on those games and they're just they sell an eye-watering amount of microtransactions in them. And I just feel like this rat race, this scramble to chase this trend is so short-sighted and foolhardy. And another thing that personally turns me away from the vast majority of live services is that they simply just don't end. Look, I like my games to end. I have a life. I have shit to do. I got a lot of shit to do outside of video games. I don't have time to make all these games part of my life. I don't have time to dedicate time to them like they're part-time jobs where I have to punch in and out of a clock every day, or I have to run around and do rewards and daily challenges and weekly challenges and grind for currency. It's exhausting. Even the games I absolutely adore, I'm happy that they're done. I'm happy that I can just put them away for a few years and go back to them when whenever I feel like it. I love a game like Kingdom Hearts 2 to death. I love it. It's my favorite game ever. But would I want to play it literally every day of my life in order to get a daily reward? To grind for the next seasonal event or some shit? No! Hell to the motherfucking no! The beauty of games like Kingdom Hearts 2 is that they're intentionally designed to create the feeling of going on a journey. That's what I love about video games. That's my favorite thing, is when I play a game and when I reach its natural conclusion, I feel like I've gone on a journey. With live services, there is no journey with a set ending. You're constantly pestered to stay on that treadmill of nebulous content day in and day out, and that's not why I play video games. And personally speaking, I only have room for one live service in my life. And I have mine. It's been chosen already. And it's Animal Crossing New Horizons. And unless your game is fucking phenomenal, unless some company releases a live service that's just gonna rock me to my core, I ain't gonna mess with other live services and make them part of my daily life. I may dabble into other live services here and there, like Destiny 2 and most recently Sea of Thieves, but they never capture my attention for longer than maybe a month. I get what I want out of them and then I move on. And in the realm of like the hierarchy of sea creatures that these companies treat their customers like with whales and all that garbage, that dehumanizing garbage, that makes me a minnow in the eyes of these greedy publishers. And I am proud to be a minnow. I am a proud minnow because I fall through the net 99.9% of the time. I am not going to be pulled in by these goddamn stupid publishers. And tying into the never-ending cycle of these games, one of my biggest pet peeves when it comes to live services, or just games in general actually, is being told to get hyped for a game's roadmap and seasons. You know, every time, like I feel like literally every time I see a game trailer on YouTube or wherever advertising a game's latest season, especially if it has year 2, year 3 or beyond attached to it, it just makes me roll my eyes so incredibly hard. Whenever a game announces its seasons before the fucking thing is even out, it makes me believe that the game is gonna release shallow and half-baked, and that the promised content in features is gonna come later. And it just convinces me not to waste my time with the game at launch. You know, when they could be making a good amount of money and making a good first impression at launch. Yeah, that's kind of a dead art with these live services. And only in extremely rare cases am I interested in seeing post-launch support before the game's even out. Very rarely, and I'm talking like Animal Crossing New Horizons rarely, where I saw some of the events that were going to come out when the game wasn't out yet, and I was like, yes, I'm on board for that. It only happened like once. Maybe Destiny back in the day, before I even knew the shit that the original vanilla Destiny was gonna put me through. On a final note, and this is something I'm gonna speak to more personally, is this creeping feeling of dread that PlayStation in particular, a publisher that I might end up having to say used to, depending on how the next few years go, used to have a great amount of respect and love for, at least in its past iterations. In its current state, I am very nervous of the direction that it's going in as far as investing in these live services and multiplayer projects. Sony has never been particularly secretive about the fact that they have wanted to get better at making multiplayer games, but they suck. Like, they absolutely suck at making live services and multiplayer games. Like, you'll have your occasional successes, like the money grubbing garbage of like I don't know, like MLB The Show, the microtransaction haven that is. And even then, that's on Xbox at this point. You got Gran Turismo Sport, which I hear is pretty decent in the esports scene. And they still, to this day, are supporting it, so I give them props for that. It's very rare you'll get a case of a successful live service from PlayStation. And I feel like just with everything I've said, I find what they're doing as far as investing in more multiplayer and live services just so short-sighted and dumb and foolhardy, and it just... They're in a unique case, though, where they can have their cake and eat it too, because they will continue to make the single player games that hopefully have no microtransactions and are really good and are fun and enjoyable, on top of the live service shit that they want to pursue now. And it just makes me nervous for what they're going to do, because their track record with this is awful. Like, it's really awful. And unless they've made dramatic changes behind the scenes as far as promoting them and marketing them and supporting them and making sure that whatever they make is a unique thing and isn't pimped to death with microtransactions and doesn't come out half-baked and shallow like Destruction All-Stars, it's just going to be more of the same, except more of these studios are just going to make mediocre games that fill up space on the PlayStation Store. And that's not what PlayStation needs right now. PlayStation just desperately needs wins with the blow after blow of PR blunders that they've been finding themselves in over the last year. So, personally speaking, this particular subject with live services and tying it back to PlayStation, this is like the one that's the most like near and dear to my heart, because I don't want to see PlayStation taking everything that I've complained about and then just running with it, and like they've learned absolutely nothing over the last generation and change, seeing all the other shit that these companies have gone through, that their third-party partners have gone through with their games. And maybe they just don't care. Maybe Jimmy Boy Ryan and Herman Hulst just simply don't care and just want short-term gains while they make money on the back end of like all the other microtransactions that are on the PlayStation Store. I don't know. It makes me worried. And this is why I think live services are just such a cancer on the video game industry. They're just awful, and I just wish they'd go away. And for all the reasons that I've listed and more that I could probably get into, I just think live services suck. They just suck. They're such a waste of time. And very, very rarely does one come out these days that feels like it's actually respectful of the player's time and investment, instead of just being a part-time job, a tedious part-time job at that. So, I hate live services. That's the too long didn't watch version of this video. Live services can fuck off.